Good morning. We'll call the Board of County Commissioners Workshop agenda for February 11th of 2025 to order. We'll start with Potts and Associate, Zach Kennedy.
Well, good morning.
Morning.
It's a beautiful day. I heard it's been pretty chilly over there, so glad to see you guys all made it. Well, it's an interesting session this year, and it seems like every time we talk, I have something new and fun to tell you guys, which this year we're looking at, or this year, wow, it's been a long year, long session. This week, we're talking about to add on to what the House Democrats did specifically with making it so that it's a simple majority vote to end discussion on final passage for bills and kicking the governor, his staff out of their chambers. They can't kick the governor out, but they can kick his staff out. Well, now, as I'm sure you guys have seen, the feds have specifically cracked down on sanctuary cities, and they're going after different programs that were founded on DEI and things like that that they're not real happy with. Adding that to the mix has just put everything with money into a complete tailspin. To add, I'll call it insult to injury. I don't know how to pile it on. The U.S. Attorney General has basically told the sanctuary cities, you can't just say that you're not a sanctuary city anymore. You are going to have to help us find people that we want to deport. So they're going to have to actually be not a sanctuary city indeed. That has a lot of people really concerned. And I know we don't talk a lot about the federal stuff, but it is impacting immensely what's going on here at the state level. In short, there's a lot of cities in Washington that have lost funding and are going to be forced to, I guess, participate with the federal government's objectives and desires, or we're not going to get the money back. To that end, our governor is kind of gone a little bit different route than most governors in recent history here, with the exception of Dixie, who I wasn't around for, but it sounded like everybody really didn't like her. She got primaried on her second term, so that was interesting. But he has decided not to participate in press conferences, except for announced ones that he's going to do. He has said that he is going to hold a press conference at the end of February once he has the revenue forecasts and the budgets. I am sure that the bean counters are losing their minds right now trying to figure out revenue forecasts because there's so much federal matching dollars coming in that may not be coming. So there's some really hard policy decisions in a lot of these municipalities. And I think that you're starting to see, with respect to the surprising behavior of our new governor, meaning that we definitely did not expect him to tell his own party, no, you guys need to try harder. I need to see cuts before more taxes. Um, I think we're starting to see why. He's kind of taken this line and he's staying out of a lot of policy. I think the governor's objective, and I have not talked to anybody, but it's kind of apparent that I think his objective right now is to make sure that Washington State maintains its federal matching funds as much as possible. We're in a heck of a budget crunch right now. We're going to see what it really is. It's been projected to be between $7 to $12 billion for the biennium. We can't afford to lose any federal dollars. I think that's why he's been pretty quiet. I think that's why he's taken a moderate approach, and he seems to be sticking to it. We haven't seen any controversial bills go to his desk yet, but we're going to see. On that note, I get a lot of questions about the firearms bills. The firearms bills are all passing on a party line vote right now, every single one of them. And they're pretty much all being questioned in federal courts around the country. I mean, or similar bills, similar issues for constitutionality. We don't know what the governor is going to do. And it's really interesting. The House has been where the fireworks have been, right? Within the two caucuses and fighting amongst them. And last week it was told to me, well, the Democrats hate the Republicans, but they really hate each other more. And so what we have is a majority party that's not only fighting the minority, but they're fighting inside their own party. And we're seeing a lot of inside politics right now, infighting. They almost ousted the speaker. So the House is basically a mess. The Senate's been really quiet. So we're seeing a lot of interesting stuff come down. I think after the budgets, everything that we're looking at is going to change. Speaking of financial stuff, we've got 1334, the 1% on property tax, raising that lid. Most of the rural counties so far basically told me that they're staying out of it. I would love to hear what you guys think and what you want to do with that one specifically, because it has been a hot topic for us. A lot of the FSEC bills, specifically to renewable energy siting and approvals and comment, they're actually, I guess, moderately beneficial for us, and they seem to be moving forward. The word is from FSEC they're in support of the bills. Now, that said, I don't know exactly how far they're going to go. Of course, FutureWise and crew are not real hot on a lot of these, but we'll kind of see how that one flushes out. But so far, they seem to be moving forward. We've got 1056, which is the state's ability to come in and audit, or not audit, but to subpoena local law enforcement. Um, you know, Nobody likes that one. We've heard different reports on both sides. The for it would be, well, they're going to get it anyway. Is it worth us spending the money to go to court and fight it when they're going to get their subpoena no matter what? So, I mean, I think these ones are ones for now we mostly just kind of leave be. Couple of interesting ones that I put on the list. We've got 5206, which is concerning cannabis retailer advertising. Just have a look at that one. It really, everybody's split on it. It's kind of a county by county issue. Some care, some don't. People are worried about a little too many signs. The sneaky one here is 5635, and this was specifically tailored towards septic systems causing an algae bloom on Newman Lake, I guess. Problem is, it catches every single lake around. And the question that we've asked is if there's a small community septic treatment or sewage system that, kind of services everybody at the end of the lake kind of deal, does that still count here? And what does that look like? What burden does it put on our small sewer districts? In general, they're really asking to narrow the scope on this one, but keep an eye on that one because we're not real sure how that's going to work. The other one that's a county by county issue is 1829, which is tribal warrants. If you interact with the tribes a lot, this is one to have a look at. Maybe your prosecutor or sheriff wants to have a look. In general, it seems like counties that do a lot of work in partnership with tribes support this bill. So it's definitely something to look at. The growth management bills, really interesting. Nothing here that has by Representative Engel. That's 1695 and 1854. These are both have been done in the past, haven't passed yet. But the villages one is really interesting. If you got a cluster of houses and it's in an R20 zone or something, it allows you to just add another house. Kind of an interesting idea. The one that we haven't seen and I haven't looked this morning is the road usage charge. Um, in the rural areas, our biggest concern on these is 5726 and 1921. They haven't actually, again, as of yesterday, hadn't published the actual text of the bill or the analysis. But our concern with these is we don't want to have to pay a road usage charge and gas tax. Some of the people in these rural areas live far enough away that an electric car is really not a feasible solution. So I think they're looking at that. This is probably going to be mostly a study optional kind of deal with a target of phasing it in over the next 10, 15 years, something. They know they need to replace the gas tax. We've relied on it pretty heavily. So, and it's rough for border counties. I mean, as you guys know, I mean, out of the Spokane area, the Post Falls gas stations are saying majority of the people they see are from Washington. So, a lot of that cross-border traffic definitely doesn't help us out. So, outside of that, we're about 2 weeks away from the first cutoff, and things are starting to get interesting. We're having more committees. The lists are getting bigger, and it really seems like a lot of the stuff's coming out on party line votes. So. With that, do you guys have any questions for me? Anything specifically you're looking at? Any questions I can answer on bills or anything out there?
I think you had touched base earlier on several of the FSEC bills. I think it's concerning of their authority over county land use planning.
Yeah, specifically what they're looking at doing is streamlining the process, and in essence, the bills bring they talk about actually getting a quick response from FSEC on siting for renewable energy, and then they bring some of the authority back down to the county level. And really, FSEC is looking at it as it's taking a burden off of them. Because as you know, there's been quite a fight here. I think Adams County has been the most recent one fighting with FSEC over, hey, they approve a siting and now the county doesn't have any say in it. Whitman County has the same thing. You guys have been fighting with it for a while too. So they're really trying to clear some of that out. These bills do not solve the problem, but they do make it a little bit more manageable.
Yeah, it almost looked like the bills that solved the problem weren't gonna make it out of.
Yeah, and I'm
Different
not.
committee assignments.
Yeah, I mean, but last week, towards the end of the week, FSEC did come out and say, "Hey, we're cool with these bills." So they're not fighting them. So that probably helps a little bit. Based on the budget problems we're having right now, these are not high priority at all. And, I think the general tone as they're looking at this stuff is if the Trump administration continues on the path that it's going right now, this will be a non-issue because there probably won't be any subsidies for renewable energy. So the chances that you're going to see a new project come into your area are slim to none. So I think that's kind of the attitude right now. So we're watching them, I mean, and unless they drastically amend them to be not favorable, any baby step is definitely a help. And a lot of these, really what it boils down to is, hey, you guys need to communicate better. If somebody makes a request, you guys got to get it done quickly.
Zach, you'd mentioned that there were basically all the Second Amendment bills were passing, and a lot of them were being challenged either here or in other states. What are those ones? I was tracking those a few weeks ago, but
I mean, so you're looking everything from magazines to requiring more background checks to requiring insurance if you like for everybody who owns a firearm, requiring insurance to a certain level for liability. They're talking about um oh man, there's one on my list here. Hold on, I don't want to miss this one. They're talking about different licensure that you're going to need to actually be able to purchase a firearm. Basically, what they're looking at is trying to, I guess, make it more difficult to have a firearm, but without letting my own opinions come in here, the conversation seems targeted towards law-abiding citizens. The other one it's been driving me nuts specifically was expanding gun-free zones. And they're talking about expanding gun-free zones to anywhere where children may be present or playing and families. The problem is they're not real specific about that, but they do give a list that they say is non-exhaustive. So they say parks, they say fairgrounds, public areas. I mean, and you can extrapolate that out a really long ways, even to maybe down the road a public street. And I'm going to put it in quotes, win on this bill was that they got the concealed carry permit holders exempted from the bill. There's a Republican amendment that was dropped that said, hey, if you've got a concealed carry permit, these gun-free zones do not apply to you. So, and I can tell you that most of the counties that I represent have said, go ahead and send us the signs. We're not going to put them up. So there is a significantly substantial fiscal note to this because the increase in signage is like you got to put gun-free zone signs all over the place. Really, really expensive. So the fiscal note may kill it, but I just found it interesting that the, again, quote, win was okay, well, if you have a concealed carry permit, this doesn't apply to you. I think that with regards to, Second Amendment considerations and where the Supreme Court has really landed and other lower federal courts, this is one that will probably be challenged if it passes, and the challenge will be upheld, most likely. But that's long process. So but like I said, everything's coming out on a party line vote.
All my questions.
If you guys want to look up, by the way, like firearms bills, for example, I will send out, they've got actually a pretty, I know I wasn't happy with it to start out with, but the legislature's, the bills site, leg.wa.gov, actually has a really cool little feature. If you scroll down, you can search bills by topic, and it actually has a drop-down menu, and you can go to firearms, or you can go to whatever topic you want and select it, and it'll give you all the bills that are specifically about that particular subject. I'll send you guys a link to the one that is specifically for firearms, so you can have them in there.
Appreciate it.
Of course.
We're
Well,
probably
if you guys,
we're probably out of time for today, but next week I would like an explanation on the fedora in your picture.
that's I wish I looked that good still. That's an old picture. If I knew how to change it, I would, but I think I'll just leave it. I'm much more attractive there, especially because it's kind of zoomed out. It's great. Well, thank you guys very much, and we'll see you at the next steering committee, and then again in another week.
All right.
Yes, thanks, Zach.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Next item. Public Works update.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of bills coming fast. Like, like insurance on your guns. Oh,
Yeah, I think it's double the number of bills from average, not from maybe last few years, but
Oh, bad news, yes. Idaho has like 7 of them.
Oh,
Tells you, I'm afraid to live in the wrong state.
yeah. Thank you, sir.
I'll actually get into detail about this, but so give you this.
thank you.
Oh, sir. I don't have an extra. So.
go ahead.
Oh,
Right? You don't need me to recognize you. That's your time.
Okay, we have a few things on the consent agenda as usual during this time of the year. We have an approval for a Wasac Energy grant for $83,000. Again, thank goodness for Wasac coming through for us, so we didn't have to pay this to have all these bills. Another one of our unfunded mandates from a year or two ago. Thank you, legislature. We have an interlocal agreement between the city of Bingen for the 6-year TIP revenues, which really is for STP revenues. I gave each board member a sheet of where what has been divvied out in 22 and will be divvied out this year to each of the cities. The other 2 cities, we do not have their agreement back signed. And we do not cut them, the checks are cut, but we will not distribute the checks until after the agreements have been executed by this board.
So those are just yearly agreements then, or are they a multi-year?
5 years to multi-year. So
Okay.
what they are is anytime the county uses STP dollars, which is surface and transportation improvement, our surface transportation program dollars, they're federal gas tax dollars. Different counties do it differently. The cities or the county here has just agreed to do give the cities a portion of that gas tax money. They're required to use it for transportation purposes, but it does not have federal strings like the county's version.
And
Ours, you have to go through all these federal stuff.
I just want to make it very clear too for my emails that it is not required that we share that. And that is a goodwill gesture on our part as the county.
And if you want the breakdown, it is on the board packet. It's with the Bingen contract. It shows how it's done by a population and road miles. Bingen gets the least amount, Goldendale gets the most. Said this is the breakdown because we've spent STP dollars. There'll be another portion given to them in 25.
Thank you. It's a 5-year agreement.
Yes, it is a 5-year period. Okay. Local agency supplement agreement with GN Northern for on-call to extend the completion date to March of 2026. Also increases the payment to from 300 to 400,000. To tell you, I would say 90% of that is reimbursable from the green energy companies for their different projects. And that's all we have on the consent agenda. On the construction side, staff is working on paperwork on the Bickleton Highway, also on Sunnyside overlay project with the contractor. Start date, of course, hasn't been scheduled yet. It'll depend upon weather. Bridge bundles, the consultant is working through environmental process on all 3 projects, and we're working with them. White plastic edge lines, we're sending the contract and bonds to the contractor. Curve warning signs, and the internal review, safety plan kickoff meeting starts this week. On the east end for maintenance, we're brushing and doing winter work. West end, we're cold patching. Brushing and winter work. We also have some guardrail damage that we just got on Centerville Highway that we'll fix. Weather dependent. Guys won't be out there where the roads are real slick now. When that calms down, we'll get out there and repair the guardrail. Superior Court remodel, ballistic panels have been installed. Door closures will be installed this week, and we're hopefully we'll be done with the project. As far as events, most of them are happening in the Dallasport Community Center. This Saturday, there's a crab feast for a family reunion. And next Saturday, there's a baby shower. So we do all kinds of things. Fuel Island's in the same place. Jail vent upgrade is now complete. The last vent was installed last week. That project's done. We'll be taking it off the list. We're still working with the jail upgrades. Dallasport Community Center insulation sheetrock replacement and the ceiling is now 75% complete. And we're drafting the RFQ for the energy audit. It's actually out. It will be out. We're not drafting, it's done. I didn't update that. Other follow-ups, every year we and it's grown over the years, but we help with the county helps, Public Works helps with these cleanup events, community cleanup. Because ultimately it helps all the counties. We do different things for different counties, or different areas, sorry. Bingen white salmon has been the longest standing one that we've assisted with, and we've assisted with it for quite a few years. What we do is we provide 2 people in an excavator. They bring all their trash in, and then we compact. We have 1 guy in the ground to make sure everybody stays away, and then we compact it. Last year we did 2 days, Friday and Saturday. I always try to get them to get a contractor to volunteer for one of the days. This year they were successful. They got somebody on Friday. They asked if we could help on Saturday. We don't ask for more money. This we bring this forward to the board because road can't pay for this. It comes out of our facilities program. And it's $2,000. Board's okay with contributing. Before I ask you that, I will tell you the other things we do for the other communities. Klickitat, we don't, it's different cleanup. There's less thing. They actually use the old mill site. So they do use a county facility to do theirs. Dallasport, which just started one a couple years ago, uses the community center parking lot. We don't charge them any fees to do that. Goldendale, one of the previous commissioners had asked us to help, but they didn't really need our help. And they just got started, I think, last year on there or 2 years ago on their cleanup. And they've not asked the county for any, or asked come to Public Works for anything. I don't think we do anything for a while, but all the communities have some sort of a cleanup. But we do assist. This is the only one we actually assisted manpower.
And we pay for that manpower out of our facilities fund.
We budget a certain amount of road wages. You don't see it as road wages, you see it as wages. So this is why it's always important when we do the budget that we get brought in so we can explain that. Because it isn't just, if you just looked at it, you took our wages, you'd say, well, you have this many people at this wages, you could lower your wages. Well, no, when we bring road in, we have to pay their wages somewhere. So that's where we have the additional wages, and it's for things like cleaning up Trout Lake Park, taking down the trees. The facilities guys don't have the equipment to do that. This event here, and there's other things like that. But again, this is the board's decision. They want to continue to support this. It's also supported through solid waste too.
Gonna say solid waste.
We support through solid waste. They've taken a bigger role in it.
Have you had an ask from communities for a bigger role?
We did Dallasport, we actually, because they were going to have it at the old school. And then they just asked if they could have it at the community center. Well, they opened the community center. They still had it at the school, but they opened the community center for it to have restrooms available to people. And, you know, the previous board last year was okay with that. So that's what.
Ask for staff.
No, at that point, they did not ask for staff. I'm not saying they won't. Klickitat has been doing theirs for a long time. And it's the same thing. We get them a key to the mill site, and then they use that first loading dock, that concrete pad or asphalt pad, and they load their dumpsters up there. They don't ask for us to pay for the dumpsters. I believe Republic donates them for each one of the events.
I think it's a good thing to help through Public Works and through solid waste.
Yeah,
They collect an amazing amount of stuff.
they do. It helps clean up, and then we don't have George having. We kind of hopefully reduce some of George's.
I've drove past some of those dumpsters and seen some amazing things.
And there's a lot of swapping going on too.
Yeah.
When they sort through that, people take out surfboards and yeah.
Certainly. No, I think it's a good cause.
Okay, that's all I have for today.
No, this STP is interesting. So we're basically the funnel.
Yes.
It's surprising the amount of money. So is a lot of that what we contract with the cities to do?
No, what it is when we get STP dollars, there's an allocation on the federal level that the states pass, because it all goes to the state. The state passes it down to the counties, and the counties get all the STP dollars throughout the state. Certain counties like King County or Pierce County, they actually make cities compete for it. They write grant applications and the whole 9 yards. The problem for us though is the cities don't have CA status or contractual authority to run federally funded programs. The county's the only one outside WashDOT, the county that can actually manage a federal contract or a federal grant. So they don't have the ability. So years ago, they decided, well, we'll still give you a portion of it, but we won't, we'll just, to use maybe not the politically correct term, the money's laundered, basically. We give them clean road fund dollars with no strings attached that we get in exchange for their portion of the federal dollars. Now, I said we didn't have to, because over the last couple of years, you know, we're pretty proud of the fact we deliver on projects and have for a long time. We got extra helping of federal dollars. We've still divvied up that to the cities. Didn't necessarily have to, but we did. I mean, that was, so far the boards have always wanted to do that to keep it, you know. So that has not changed. Could they look at changing it? They could. You would hear probably quite a bit from RTC because they're advocates of the city. They've even tried to convince the cities of, you know, you should go ahead and get STP dollar, or you should try to get the STP dollar. Okay, who's going to manage the project for you? Us then. That doesn't always work well. Or the state, and then you know, unless you have a lot of federal dollars, you don't actually get anything for the money because the rules are so intense, and everything you have to go through. I mean, we typically spend. It has to be in the millions for us to actually spend federal dollars, because if it's $50,000-$60,000. You've paid for administration.
I guess it probably costs us money.
Yes, it would cost us more money.
Well, I know we've been kind of looking at scenarios of what cities pay, what they pay us, what we get in taxes. So
other projects, other federally funded projects. Just a couple of examples that we've managed, for like the new pipeline, water pipe, that's
Not
economic development.
right. The stuff we do out there it's different because this is federal highway dollars. They have a lot more strings than anybody else. And it isn't just federal highway, it's only STP dollars, because we get a lot of safety grant money for like plastic edge line and all that. We do not give them a portion of that. Again, the board may want to review the agreement with Benjamin just to take a look. There's only one thing I see, and it was brought in a couple of years ago, or the last 5 years ago, the last time we did this. And I think we only did them in 2-year increments for a while. This was driven by RTC. And I want to say it was actually, might have been 5 years ago, that there is a lot of counties allow the cities to borrow against the STP dollars, because the counties are allowed to borrow against their STP dollars. Again, the board does not have to. It says they're allowed. It doesn't say the board has to do that, though.
What is RTC?
Regional Transportation Committee.
I mean, yeah.
And the P and STP, Surface Transportation
Program.
Program.
Which is RTC is what Commissioner Irick is now having fun with. It's a committee, a tri-county committee, Clark, Skamanian, and Klickitat. based in Clark. And they have to do with how other not STP dollars, but how other federal funds get divvied out, and that's passed through RTC. It's another layer of government that another committee. I won't say what I think, to shut up, but so they get the money and then they divvy up for like sidewalks and stuff. Then they divvy up the money, and they actually do a granting thing that the counties and the cities can compete with, because White Salmon got one, which we help them manage.
Yeah, which I sat in my first RTC meeting last week, and listened, which was interesting. It's a lot of federal funds for Clark County. But then the next day, we had discussion on the next meeting about Klickitat County transportation law, which actually that was really good meeting. That Seth joined.
Yes.
And Sharon on our transportation through senior services. Which that was really a good meeting and discussion. And they're asking our input on that. And even as simple as a discussion to the fairgrounds. And that looking at, we should probably ought to be putting a sidewalk up to our fairgrounds, because people walk up there and there's nowhere to really walk. Things just that simple.
Right.
What different, you have to have it on there if you want funding. That needs to be part of your plan.
It will be, we'll be asking Commissioner Irick to help us get a little more than the last time. The last time we got RTC dollars, it was for the path at Klickitat. And we asked for, I don't remember, $500,000, because that's about, at least that was 3/4 for the project. They gave us $50,000. We turned it back and said, we don't want it. We're not going to tie, because with federal dollars, we cannot use our own crews. We have to contract it out. It has to go to bid. There's all these other environmental stuff tied to federal dollars. That's why for 50 grand, you would get nothing out of it except for a more expensive project.
That was for the rails to trails.
Yes, when we paved the in Klickitat, we paved the trail.
In the, say in the 10, which that's still on there.
Yes,
Trails still on the plan.
and we looked at and there's stuff on the 6-year to do, like sidewalks in Klickitat, sidewalks in Lyle, sidewalks in Dallasport, other places, communities that do sidewalks in. And that is one of the bigger funding sources, but somebody has to, and now Commissioner Irick is stepping to the plate, get somehow or another battle all the voices in Vancouver and Clark County and say, we want a bigger share of that. Because years ago, we got quite a bit of that money. Those sidewalks in Lyle were paid for through that money. But now they've just reduced it to the cost of projects have gone up. So now Vancouver and Clark County get much bigger share than what they used to.
And they have big projects.
They do.
I get it.
We ask for, once every 5 years or something, give us a little bit bigger piece of the pie, a little bit more peanut butter. I'll use that synopsis.
So are you coming back?
I'll be
For
back
the
at
bid
1:30 for the bid opening. Yes,
Thank
thank you. I forgot to tell you that. Yes, there's a bid opening at 1:30. For the airport, took us a long time to get there. Thank goodness for all the help from Commissioner Zoller. We finally have come to where we can actually open bids. We're still not the project work, but at least we're to that point.
And on a schedule.
Yes.
that We do not have before.
And Jeff, when do we have to, for the city of Golden and White Salmon, so we have the one in here for Bingen, when will those?
When they get them back to us.
Okay,
we reached out to them again today and said, hey, we haven't seen your stuff yet. And you see what we owe them for 2024, so we will not release their checks until the agreements have been executed, because technically we have no ability to give them, we're gifting dollars.
And I think we've all been in communication, like, we don't want to piecemeal all these deals that we have with interlocal, that we kind of want to look at the big picture. So I don't know, as far as from me,
Yeah, this,
I'm not in a hurry to harass them,
Right.
because I'd rather look at the whole thing. We need to look at it holistically and say, here's how the county and the city's working together. You've done a great job of threading that needle between, you know, being kind, giving here, and support from the county, which makes it easier for the city. You've done a really good job with that, but we kind of have to look at the whole pie.
And I would like to see the whole picture because we are a good partner, but it's all over the place.
Right.
So I'd like to see where all.
So
that
we
is.
won't put a rush on them then.
no,
I mean, like I said, we haven't seen anything from them, so we won't push them anymore.
well, this is good to know for the total equation.
And it states very clearly in the agreement, they are not to use these funds for anything but transportation. For them, it would be an audit finding if they did, because they are using road dollars or transportation dollars they cannot use in their general fund. That would be no different than us pulling road dollars out and putting it in the general fund.
Oh, I thought there was a mechanism.
Well, there is. I'm not gonna tell you all those mechanisms, though.
Just saying. Well, I don't have anything else unless.
Oh,
Thank you.
Commissioner,
Okay, thank you.
thank you for your time. All right, well, I'm moving a little early. Yes, sure, come on up, Bill.
Good morning.
Morning.
Try to be as brief as possible.
Is that your new logo? I have to ask.
No, this is actually
Okay.
something I found in the basement and just put it on, but, yeah, we do have. Recycled it, yeah. Recycled it, yeah, yeah, our new patches are in and so you'll be seeing some new uniforms and stuff like that, and then. Our t-shirts and the rebranding stuff is done, we're getting, like I mentioned, the footprint of that patch, we'll be able to send that out and have some of those uniforms that are existing and still in good repair. The new patch applied to that. But yeah, this is just something I found down in the in an old locker and washed it a few times. So vacancies, we have 2 vacancies still. We posted that over 3 weeks ago. With no known hits on that, no applicants. We're looking at, Human Resources is looking to see if we can see how many times the site's been visited and somebody's looked to maybe give us some data, but we're looking at exploring some marketing strategies such as social media and other law enforcement venues to advertise in there, where people might look at like Police One or the WASPIC website. And I've offered to pay the applicants testing, so when they apply, I could pay their $30 fee or whatever it is for the testing, if that's a hurdle for them. But yeah, we're still down those 2 vacancies, one on maternity leave, and then we have another person deploying for military leave. So that's going to leave us in a lurch here really soon. And we have no built-in relief factor at the jail, so that becomes problematic.
What's the starting age range?
18.
18.
Yeah, so regarding our food service contract, in December, Aramark increased our meal costs from $2.95 to $7.25. Quick math on that is 246% increase. And so our average population in 2023 was 33 per day. We do 3 meals a day. That's roughly 36,135 meals. At $7.25 is a $261,980 bill. I'm budgeted for $165,000. Okay, which would have been appropriate if we didn't have that 246% increase from Aramark. And so in response to that, I'm preparing a RFP for food service to be made at the jail or delivered to the jail to expand our net of services. Instead of just having them prepared there, maybe there's an avenue for somebody to make them and get them to us. I did meet with the Department of Corrections, Correctional Industries Division, which in addition to having a full complement of things that they do, they also do meals for the prisons and for jails. They actually have a jail menu. And so they're working on logistics, but if they can, to Biggs Junction, they're meeting on the 19th to see if they can service us. And if they can service us, then we may have meals delivered, which will be within my budget, the existing budget. But at my current burn rate, I have less than 200 days of food available. Our body worn cameras, I don't have one today, but you can imagine the cameras that law enforcement wears. We had the sheriff's office had its own contract, which supplied the road deputies and the correctional deputies. It was necessary for us to split that for billing and for viewing and things like that. So the initial cost to replace the existing equipment that we had was a little over $82,000 to replace that. After reviewing our current needs and what industry standards is, we were able to dial that back to around $67,936. That's still giving us adequate coverage and things, just deleting some things that were maybe that we find redundant or not used a lot. And that can be spread out, I think, over 5 years, but I'm not 100% confident. I believe that that's the case though. But in addition to that, that will replace, separate the contract and then refresh. I don't know if I mentioned this, pardon me if I did. It'll replace our existing old equipment with brand new stuff. And so we'll have all new stuff. We won't need to replace it for many years. In-cell monitoring, there's technologies. The jail has a need to have to implement technology, and it's been brought up before. But I've had the opportunity to look at some of that technology in the sense it's in-cell radar. And what this will do is it'll assist staff. We know that the jail, eyes are important when you have people incarcerated and cells are important, but the technology allows us to see to monitor somebody's while they're in there. And there's a company, Reassurance, they have in-cell radar, and what it does is it detects lack of movement. So if we put a person in a cell and there's no movement for a period of time, it'll alert an officer. It also assesses respirations and heart rate. And so we can set that threshold with our medical provider, threshold, and if they exceed or go below that threshold, it's a web-based technology that alerts our staff in the booth that this is happening. So imagine one officer is in court, one officer is doing a booking, and we have a person detoxing in a high risk or a need cell. And their heart rate drops below a specific number, it'll alert us to be able to go check on them. There's a couple of different ones. There's some that are worn with wristbands. I'm not a fan of that. I've seen people do weird things in confinement, and I think that would just be a headache. And so this is a mounted system in a cell. Ideally, 7 monitors would be optimal. That would give us 1 for each acute needs cell. So when somebody comes in on booking or they're or a crisis cell in there, and then it would give us 4 for transition cells. So 2 male, 2 female. Ideally, it's not best to keep somebody right outside of booking where they're one on display for everybody that comes in. And it's not fair for the person that's being watched more intently to have to be there. And it's also not fair for the person that's being booked into jail to have all of their business on display in front of that person. So having a separate area to put them in would be ideal. Now, I know you're wondering what the cost is on that, right? So let's get to that. The other thing I want to mention before my colleagues go, what the heck? I do recognize that it does have IT and public works implications. It's a simple data port though. They need 1 data port and they need an AC power supply. And so it's literally, if I can plug in a computer, if I can add a computer to the jail today, then I can add this system. And so that's really all it needs. The company will come in and install it all for us. The total cost for that unit is $44,000. I met with, this week with, our Washington County's risk pool and confirmed that they'll pay, us $25,000 for the install of that. So they'll cut us a check immediately for that as soon as they've seen it, signed contract. And so, I'll be bringing, looking forward to seeing future discussions on that. There is one other.
I'd heard that they were willing to pay for all of it back, but maybe that was.
Well, that was when they're talking about the risk monitors last year.
Yeah, there is another company. I'm not gonna rule them out. I set up a meeting with them. I really would like to see what they have. I lean towards this company because I've looked at other jails that use them. SCORE uses them and other jails like us use them. And so I've actually been able to see and speak to the staff and how it interacts, how they like it. And what's great about it is because it's web-based, our physician, our medical people can look remotely and see what's going on with their people and alert us to maybe some needs before our eyes and people detect, because corrections is a learned process. We can have 100 correctional officers there, but if they don't know what they're looking for, they haven't had that experience and that training and those life experiences in there, they could miss something. And so the technology, being able to set those predetermined thresholds will be a huge advantage for us in our rural community.
No, I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
So medical services, since we met last, we did explore some available medical service providers. We're looking for people that meet the criteria to meet the 3 requirements for the Healthcare Authority grant. And so we met with some company that they do all virtual, but they have a handle on it. They're in a few other states. They're just now getting their feet under them for virtual stuff. And so it really kind of leery about what that would look like, but I'm not a medical professional, so I'm seeking the advice of other people who are to see what that looks like. But they provide medical needs and then also some mental health follow-up. And so if we have somebody on suicide watch, they have people 24/7 who we can consult to take somebody off of a suicide watch. Putting them on is pretty easy, but taking them off and stuff needs to be have multiple stakeholders involved. Our multi-passenger van, I've talked about that a lot. It's been established, it does need to be replaced. We do have money in our, I don't remember the name of the account for that. But just to put it in perspective, if we were to replace Nellie today, on the low end is $190,000, and it wouldn't be available till fall of 2025. We're going to rethink how our needs. Nellie is like the rock star of transportation vehicles, and my assessment is we don't need that. It was great at the time, but there's other things that we can do. And so my intent is to look at on the state contract. I spun my wheels a little bit. Please forgive the dad joke there, but not as ignorant to the process of obtaining equipment and the application for state contract stuff. So I'm going to fill that stuff out and see what we can get. But if we were just to buy it from a normal dealer today, it'd be on the high end $65,000 for that. Then comes to upfitting it, which is a huge cost. Avis is a company that provides the dividers, which would separate us from the inmates, and then a divider to separate the inmates within, so we could have like women in the back of the vehicle and men in the front when we go to West District Court. On the high end, I'm estimating around $8,000 for that. And the benefit is our public works department said they can install those dividers for us to save us money. So that'd be around $73,000, which would be enough to purchase the vehicle and upfit my our second transport vehicle, the Durango, in that budget. So this last week, probably the thing I'm most proud of since we met last was our classification needs at the jail. On the 28th and through the 30th, we had some people come in that helped us revisit our classification tools. Classification tools are intended to identify characteristics in a person that would put them at increased jeopardy or us at increased jeopardy, and then allows us to put that person in the population suitable for them on intake. Additionally, these tools will be used to reclassify somebody after 30 days. And so a person's status could change. I might come in thinking, hey, I'm good to go. This is a simple thing. And then I get hit with, oh my gosh, this is going to be a life-changing event and change everything about me. So these tools can be used to reclassify them at 30 days and then every 60 days after that. And again, that could mean that they need to be higher security or more, I call it high touch, meaning they might need additional intervention or put into a different place. Or it could mean that they're less restrictive. And so housing somebody in the least restrictive housing is always the best. A person can come to us, of course, on their absolute worst day, but that doesn't mean that they need to spend 8 months with us on isolation status and no contact with people. So it'll allow us to revisit where they're at the time. And that concludes my report. Any questions?
So back on the grant. Okay. And you had mentioned working on the medical services,
Yeah.
which is probably a big part of getting grant funding.
Yeah, the hurdle that we have is finding a person who'll prescribe medications 30 days after release.
After release.
After release.
That's more of the issue. Not
That's in my
while they're
brain.
incarcerated, but it's maybe after the release.
Yeah,
is the
yeah,
issue.
one of the mandatory criteria is that the jail will provide medications for up to 30 days after release. And so a lot of my colleagues, there's not a lot of description on that, right? What does that really mean? So do I want, would a person, if they were on this prescription, which is they could sell, would I prescribe that thing that they could then go sell and then get something else? And of course, that's a concern. The other argument that you could have to that is, well, this could also provide insulin and things like that a person would need,
Yeah.
and they don't have to go steal the chainsaw out of the back of my truck to go get insulin to survive the next 30 days. And so there's a couple of different arguments. There's no chainsaw in the back of my truck, and if it was, it'd be Ted. So everybody going to look at my truck. But yeah, so that's the other side of the argument. And so and so a lot, and the company that we looked at, they don't provide some of those opioid services. And again, you can tell I'm really ignorant on that stuff. Confinement's my thing, but I'm leaning on stakeholders and people that are helping me out with that.
I was just curious, what obstacles do we still have to overcome?
Yeah, there's a check sheet that's super huge and it's written in like 5 different languages when I read it. That we have to look at. And so we meet every week to discuss and check things off of that check sheet. Our next deadline is April 1st to get that. So we've done lots of verifying that we're still good to go, our name's on there, and there's a process to receive some money after that. And so I don't want to put the cart before the horse or give my perception of what I believe it is on the record, but we're working really hard to meet all of the criteria and goals to receive that grant.
And then are some of those people just signed over to behavioral health? Do you work with Aaron to people that are on medicines or whatever?
So I'm not understanding what you're saying.
For probation, what?
Yeah, so for the 30 days after they're released, are some of those people able to?
So, I mean, if you're released, you're released. So like if we have no supervision authority over you, then you're just done.
Right, but you're saying you're mandated to help them get medicine for 30 days.
A person, yeah. So for example, if my son came to our jail and he had a medication and he was released, then we would give him his medications for 30 days. Now, those can be billed back to the healthcare authority, is my understanding, right? So we're not spending our out-of-pocket money, but if, for example, if my child was on Suboxone, for example, I need to have a provider that will prescribe Suboxone to him for 30 days.
Oh, right when he's being released.
Yeah. And there's follow-up in the beginning and stuff like that. There's getting assessments and medical care before. Without having the document in front of me, I really wouldn't want to comment on.
I'm saying, is there any tie-in with that, with behavioral health and public health?
I don't want to say no, but I don't know at this point. Is tie-in as far as what?
That they could use those services to.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. They would have to speak to that, but from my perspective, no, there's no follow up with our behavioral health or probation services. We don't have authority with them as it's tied to the grant.
And I think Bill may have mentioned that Aaron's working with him because the three of us are on that grant application. And Aaron's been very involved in this grant, helping him put it together. And so they're involved at the planning stage.
Yeah, I don't know how that would play out with that. My understanding is it's provider based, and then it allows us to then bill for services as well as a potential revenue. They're coming in, but is the billing and the tracking of that gonna be more than what we would get back from them? Remains to be seen, because I don't have a position to do billing and things like that.
Well, and part of it is it not the grant for medical records too, or is that separate?
So the grant is extremely undefined. It has to support the opioid. Again, without having it in front of me, I don't want to misquote it, but it has to support it in what's my colleagues struggle with in other counties is it's not super defined as to what it does. You essentially develop a plan of, hey, this is what I want to spend it on, and then they bring it in. And so from my perspective, something that I would love to have would be a body scanner to look for drugs concealed inside of a person who's coming in on the weekends for weekend court, right? And then saying, hey, you want me to bring in some fentanyl? I will do this and I'll smuggle it in for you the next week. That would be a concern that I have. And that would be something that I would look to spend money.
I think specifically to the electronic medical records. Director Quinn was working with the sheriff's office and that prior to this grant. I think that's, that's all wrapped into this to some degree. She'd be the expert on this.
Yeah.
And the three of us had an online presentation from a medical provider and medical records, electronic medical records was part of theirs, something that is needed and necessary and kind of all intertwined with or without the grant.
Yeah, I mean, even that we can access when somebody comes in, what medications are they on?
Sure. Yeah, and that outfit that the company that I told you about earlier, as he said, they handle all that stuff. Right now, our correctional officers are tasked with soliciting that information.
Yeah, which is,
So things that, I want to evolve and get away from, if and when possible.
no, great. Thank you. for
Absolutely.
helping me.
It's too good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks for this, I say it again.
Like to take a 10-minute recess. 10:42.
We're taking a break.
Take a 10-minute recess.
In the meantime,
You get a
I'll
read?
pass these out, just in case.
Thank you.